You ever have one of those nights where blue and red lights turn your front yard into a bad movie set, and suddenly your whole life's up for debate on the sidewalk? Because I do. That was me standing in my slippers, while two patrol cars idled at the edge of my pines, their lights spinning on my wife Rachel and me like we were suspects in a lineup. And who else but Karen, queen of the HOA, shouting from behind the badge, "She's squatting." She broke in. "Look at her, she's not even from here." That's how my wife, an Army lieutenant with medals and scars and the patience of a saint, got welcome back from deployment. Yeah, that happened. And it gets better. Rachel, cool as the mountain air, didn't even blink. She just reached into her jacket and handed the deputy her military ID, and you should have seen his face the way it changed from cop on a call to, "Oh hell, I just stepped in it." Karen went dead quiet. You could have heard a pin drop. The deputy, looking about as happy as a guy stepping in dog crap, turned to Karen and said, "You didn't mention this was a military officer's home." That's when the air changed. And what happened after, well, that's a story you'll want to hear all the way through. Let me back up a sec, because none of this started with patrol cars or Karen's power trip. I'm Brian, a school counselor out of Denver, the kind of guy who keeps his head down, pays his taxes, and wants nothing more than a little peace at the end of the day. My wife, Rachel, though she's the tough one. 10 years active duty, steady as a rock, and somehow still finds time to bake banana bread for the neighbors, even the ones who don't deserve it. After her last deployment, Rachel came back bruised body, spirit, you name it. I figured the only thing I could really give her was some peace. So I brought her up to my grandfather's old lake cabin, a place with more trees than people and enough silence to hear yourself think. It was technically outside the city, and funny enough, not even part of the HOA. But nobody told Karen that. Now, Karen, imagine a 60-something with a helmet of blonde hair, white SUV, and a sweatshirt that says, "Why not?" Like it's a threat. First time I met her, she was already scolding me about mailbox angles and shingle colors. The kicker. She once left me a note for stacking my firewood too high, then berated me at the mailbox for not trimming the hedges with dignity. I tried to kill her with kindness, coffee offers, fixing up her favorite dock rail, you name it. But it was never enough. Karen wanted control. Rachel never met Karen before that day, and believe me, Rachel isn't the kind of woman you bluff. The day Rachel came home, I'd scrubbed that cabin top to bottom, made her grilled cheese just the way she liked apple slices and cinnamon don't judge. The moment she stepped out of the car, I knew I finally had her back for real. But 5 minutes in there, it was a Karen knock. You know the type. 3 quick bangs of paws, then 2 more like she expects a salute. Rachel barely looked up. "You expecting someone?" "Nope." I opened the door, and there stood Karen, clipboard clenched like a weapon, arms crossed, lips pursed like she's tasting lemons. "This property's not registered for new occupancy," she barked, laser eyes fixed on Rachel. "I saw her moving in. I need to see her papers." Rachel steps forward, says, "Excuse me, this is a private community. You can't bring strangers here. She's my wife," I said, "just back from overseas." Karen narrowed her eyes, ready for battle. "You expect me to believe that?" Rachel, always steady, said, "I don't need your belief, ma'am. I need you to back off." Karen didn't like that started dialing. "I'm calling the authorities," she snapped, waving the clipboard like a sheriff's badge. I tried reasoning, but she was already on the phone. Rachel and I just exchanged a look, her not afraid, just tired of the nonsense. 15 minutes later, the lakefront was lit up like a Vegas show. 2 patrol cars, neighbors peeking from porches, and Karen arms waving as she unloaded her list of grievances to the officer. Rachel stood on the porch, arms folded, patient, like it was a rerun she'd already seen. The deputy turned to Rachel. "Ma'am, do you live here?" "Yes," she answered. "Got ID?" That's when she handed over her military card, and just like that you could feel the shift. Karen's face went pale, but before anyone could speak, a black SUV pulled up. Window rolls down, and the driver, broad-shouldered, late 50s, wearing aviators, steps out. Karen goes pale. "Karen," he says, voice like gravel, "what in God's name have you done now?" Turns out this is Sheriff Dan Peterson, Karen's cousin. Didn't matter much. The man didn't blink when Karen tried to explain. He listened, took Rachel's ID, and when he read it, I saw that flicker in his eyes. "Thank you for your service, Lieutenant Monroe," he said, dead serious. He turned to Karen. "You called in a trespassing complaint on a military officer in her own home?" Karen sputtered, but he shut her down quick. "You're not the sheriff, Karen. You're the president of a voluntary association with no legal jurisdiction over this cabin. You know that." Rachel stepped in. "So every woman with a bag is a criminal to you?" The deputies looked away, embarrassed. Sheriff Dan told Karen, "I'll deal with you later," then told the deputies to wrap it up. The lights dimmed, neighbors faded away, but Karen just stood there fuming by her SUV. Inside, Rachel slumped onto the couch. "So that's the famous HOA lady," she said. I tried to lighten the mood. "Welcome home." But she just unlaced her boots, shook her head. "I thought coming back would be hard. Didn't expect to feel like a criminal in 10 minutes. I tried to reassure her. "They don't decide who you are. This is your home now." She leaned in, tired. Then a rock hit the window. We looked outside. Nothing. But under a rock by the porch, Rachel found a note. "This place isn't safe for outsiders." Not Karen's handwriting. Someone else. The next morning, I drove into town, bought cameras, lights, new deadbolt. The hardware store guy asked trouble with wildlife. "Something like that," I said. He grinned. "More wild folks than wild animals in those woods." He wasn't wrong. I came home to Rachel standing outside, arms crossed. "Look at that," she said, pointing to the dock. "In thick black paint. Get out now." Rachel's voice went flat. "This isn't just Karen." That night we installed trail cams, double-checked every lock, and waited. At 2 a.m. the motion light blinked on. Rachel, always alert, grabbed a flashlight. On the trail, a hooded figure moved through the trees, pausing to stare into the camera. It was Cody, Karen's grandson, wearing his signature maroon hoodie. Before we could even process, we heard glass shatter. Raced inside to find two figures, Cody crowbar in hand, and an older teen, Derek. Rachel didn't flinch. "Sit down now," she ordered. The older kid, Derek, froze. Cody looked terrified. I stepped up. "What do you want?" Before they could answer, the sheriff's SUV pulled up. Dan stepped in, stone-faced, took one look and said, "Let's talk outside." Rachel handed over the footage. Dan was furious, especially when he saw Derek's face. Inside, Cody broke down, apologized. "I didn't know she was your wife." Rachel said, "What does that matter? I'm a person, uniform or not." Dan hauled them both out, promised to file charges if we wanted. We spent the rest of the night cleaning up, reinforcing windows. In the morning, Rachel just stared at the lake. "She sent her own grandson," she whispered. "That's what scares me." I nodded. "She'll do anything for control." But Rachel wasn't backing down. Time to fight back, but on our terms. We dug through the HOA bylaws, all 117 pages. Rachel found the loophole: our cabin was never in the HOA annexation. We printed the documents, county maps, even got a letter from an attorney. At the next HOA board meeting, Rachel walked in wearing her army dress jacket, folder in hand. Karen was there, her crew at her side. When Karen tried to accuse us of unauthorized residency, Rachel stood up, read the law aloud, slammed the proof on the table, and said, "Your rules don't apply here. What you're doing is abuse of power." Room went dead silent. Karen sputtered, but Rachel cut her off. "You used your own grandson to commit a crime. This isn't leadership, it's bullying." We walked out, but the ripples were just starting. Later that night, Karen herself showed up. "No clipboard, no yelling. I told Cody to scare you, but I didn't mean for it to go that far," she said. Then handed Rachel a resignation letter. "I'm done. Stuart's taking over. Cody's grounded, maybe counseling. I need to fix things." Rachel told her, "You've got a lot to fix." Karen nodded and walked off. A different woman, humbled, maybe even scared. But then came the twist. Rachel's phone buzzed. An anonymous email. A photo of us on our porch, high res, taken from the woods. You may have won the battle, but the war isn't over. The angle was from our one blind spot. Rachel's instincts kicked in. She found a burner phone at the tree line with photos including her military ID. Then a message appeared. Niece uniform, but uniforms burned too. This wasn't Karen. Rachel recognized the style. Someone she'd treated in a war zone, a soldier named Colin Bray, who blamed her for his injuries, had sent threats for years. We brought in Dan. He took the phone, started an investigation. Nights got tense. Someone cut the power, left another note. The badge won't save her. The lake has secrets. Rachel found old letters from Colin, threats from his past. We decided enough was enough. Rachel set a trap, went to the dock at dusk while Dan and I watched. Sure enough, Colin emerged from the woods, lighter and gasoline in hand. Rachel called him by name. He froze. Dan sprang out, tackled him. Colin was cuffed, hauled away. As we watched the sheriff's taillights fade, Rachel picked up a note left by Cody. I'm sorry. You have a friend if you need one. She smiled, first time in days. That's when it really hit me. In a place built on control and fear, kindness still found its way through. But Rachel wasn't done. At the next HOA meeting, she called for a vote to dissolve the HOA. Shared stories rallied the neighbors, and when the votes were counted, the HOA was finished. People who'd been silent finally spoke up. The community finally felt free. The last surprise, Sheriff Dan delivered a letter postmarked before the attack. Just a simple card. I was wrong, but you were brave. No signature. Karen, I think. Maybe that was her own way of letting go. In the weeks that followed, we rebuilt the dock, planted a garden, and neighbors, ones who'd once ignored us, showed up to help. Rachel finally hung up her army jacket by the door and said, "You know what peace really is? It's the moment you realize you're the one who has to protect it." Now we fish, we garden, we live, and that little cabin is finally home. Nobody's calling the cops on that. And if you've ever faced down a bully HOA or otherwise, tell me, what would you have done? What does justice look like to you? Drop your thoughts below, because maybe together we finally figure out what it means to have a real community.